So good morning, students. It's 24th May 2021 and the time is quarter to 11 now. Uh, Today we are here to discuss Ruskin Bond's famous story, the King and the Tree Goddess. But before I introduce the story to you people, I suppose that it's important to know what is a short story. Although this lecture is not on short story, the introduction, the history, the origin, no, it's on the King and the Tree Goddess. But I will give you a brief introduction about the short story in the first 5 minutes. Here I share my screen with you. I hope it's visible. Here it is. So the topic is The King and the Tree Goddess by Ruskin Bond. It's a short story written by him. But before we discuss the text of the story, the introduction to the story, and the biography of the writer Ruskin Bond, I will throw a brief light on short story, a brief introduction. Short story is one of the oldest genres of English literature. There are very different definitions of short story. If you check different sources, the definitions are different. But I will try my level best to give you the best possible definition. So you can see on your screen that I have written, it's a brief introduction. Short story is considered to be a work of art which can be read in a single sitting. What I mean by single sitting is, I mean you sit down or you sit somewhere to read, you take that short story, you read it. In between, it is not long enough that you will uh, uh, you want to have a cup of tea in between, or you will get bored. It's a matter of few minutes. If you read a short story, it's a matter of few minutes. So it is usually said that short story can be finished in a single sitting. It focuses on a single incident or a series of linked incidents. So the short story focuses on a single incident or a series of incidents which are linked together to a center. And the most important part is it evokes a single effect in the reader, in the minds of the readers. It evokes a single mood. If the short story is tragic, it will be tragic throughout. Usually it happens. If it evokes the mood of happiness in the reader, so you will be happy throughout. So what I mean to say is that short story evokes a single effect or mood. As far as the origin of short story is concerned, I mean from when the short story came into existence, or when the short story came into in front of us, the short story has an oral tradition. Like when you were young, or even today, you sit with your grandmother, you sit your grandparents and ask them for stories, and they narrate the stories to you, right? After having dinner, it was a culture in the families earlier that after having dinner, the oldest person in that family used to sit, and the children in particular used to sit around him or her, and he or she used to, the grandparents in particular, what I'm talking about, they used to narrate short stories to the kids. And most of those grandparents used to be illiterate, but still they had the, they used to remember those short stories. So the actual history of short story started with the oral tradition. It was transferred, these stories were transmitted from one generation to another generation through oral tradition, orally, right? Like we had myths, we had tales, anecdotes, fables, etc. Right? The earliest short stories were these: myths, legends, tales, anecdotes, fables, etc. You can check the meaning of these words in the dictionary or further details. As far as the length of a short story is concerned, it is agreed that a short story should be in between 1000 and 4000 words. I want to mention here that this is not a hard and fast rule. You can have a short story, I mean, which has only 400, 500, or 700 words. Then you can have a short story which can have 5000, 6000, or 7000 words. But the optimum length, the agreed length, is 4000, 1000 to 4000 words. Then there are short stories with a fewer words than 1000. You have short story. You have flash fiction, right? In the last line on the slide, I have written that there is a kind of short story which is called mini saga. Mini saga can be written like I have written it on the screen, or you can put a hyphen in between mini and saga, or you can just separate these two words because it's a compound word. You have only 50 words in a mini saga, only 50 words. It too is a kind of short story. Then there is sudden fiction. These points are very important. Sudden fiction, you have around 750 words in a sudden fiction. Then there is a kind of short story which we call Drabble. Drabble has only 100 words in it. And there is the shortest short story, which we call 6-word story. 6-word story, right? A story in just 6 words. There are a few, you can check it from internet. There are 6-word short stories as well. So this is something about the introduction. It's an introduction to short story. I gave you the definition, how it passed on from generation to generation, the length, and then different kinds of short stories. Now we will move on to our short story, The King and the Tree Goddess, which has been written by Ruskin Bond. About the author, we will talk about the biography of the author, because this author is still alive. He is, he lives in Uttarakhand, in Mussoorie. He was born on 19th May 1934 at Kasauli, India. He had an Indian birth, this Ruskin Bond. His parents were Edith Clarke and Aubrey Alexander Bond. His father was in Royal Air Force before India got independence. He shifted to London for his studies. Then he came to Delhi for some work. He started working as a journalist. Then he settled in Dehradun. And after that, he finally settled in Mussoorie in 1963. You all know that Mussoorie is a beautiful hill station in Uttarakhand state. So he is settled there. He never married, actually, Ruskin Bond, and he adopted a family, and he lives with that adopted family in Mussoorie now. He has written hundreds of short stories, hundreds of short stories, more than 30 novels, the books of fiction, on fiction, and a few essays. Hundreds of short stories, around 400 to 500 short stories are attributed to Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is known as the Wordsworth of India. There are several interviews on YouTube. You can check those interviews of Ruskin Bond on YouTube, where he agrees that he was influenced by Dickens, Rudyard Kipling, Charlotte Bronte, and TE Lawrence. These are some of the writers who influenced Ruskin Bond to a great extent. I will move on to the next slide. He wrote his first novel in London. When he was in London at a very young age of 17 years, he wrote his first novel, and the name of the novel was A Room on the Roof. A Room on the Roof. This was his first novel when he was just 17 years old, and it got published after 3 or 4 years when he was 21 years old. He was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1992. He got Padma Shri in 1999, and later on, he got Padma Bhushan in 2014. Some of the short stories written by Ruskin Bond have been adapted into movies, into films by Bollywood directors. One of the famous film, Khoon, Maaf, in which you have Priyanka Chopra as the lead heroine. That movie is based on Ruskin Bond's short story Susanna's Seven Husbands, right? There is another movie, Junoon, which is based on Ruskin Bond's short story, A Flight of Pigeons, right? So Ruskin Bond's short stories have been picturized, have been adapted by the Bollywood as well, and these two movies, Khoon, Maaf, and Junoon, have been, they are taken from the short stories of the writer. This is Ruskin Bond in front of you, right? Ruskin Bond on one side of the screen, and on the other side, I have uh, tried to show you the cover page of the book in which the King and the Tree Goddess short story appeared. The name of the book is The Road to the Bazaar. It is a collection of short stories, and one of the short stories in this book is The King and the Tree Goddess, which we are studying today, right? So this is the cover page of the book. You can get this book online. I have this book, or you can get the e-form of this book as well. And on the other side is Ruskin Bond, our short story writer. Now, as far as the short story is concerned, The King and the Tree Goddess, it was published in a book, The Road to the Bazaar. I just told you a few seconds ago that this is the short story which was published in a collection of short stories, and that collection of short stories is called The Road to the Bazaar. It was published by Rupa and Company in 1993, and the second edition came in 1997. It is a children book, actually. I mean, these short stories are written for children, in particular, children like teenagers and students like you, right? There are 16 short stories in this book, and the number of the pages is 119. The other important short stories in this book, there are 16 total short stories. One of the short stories is The King and the Tree Goddess, which we will study. And the other important stories are The Tunnel, The Window, Mukesh Keeps a Goat, and The Great Train Journey. Now, as far as the story is concerned, I hope, because I already shared the text of the short story with you, I hope that you have already read that. There is a king who plans to build a palace on a single column. He wants to build the biggest palace, the most magnificent palace of his time, and he decides that the whole palace should rest on a single column, right? And for that, he wants a big deodar tree. This deodar word is not, you are not listening to this word for the first time. We have deodar trees around. In the short story, Ruskin Bond says that deodar tree is the tree of God, deodar, right? It is the tree of God. The king wants a big deodar tree because he wants a single column for his palace. He wants a big deodar tree to be cut. His daughter objects to it. She says that this is the tree of God. You cannot cut it. It is used for temples only. But the king is, he is determined. He asks his son and the soldiers to get a big tree, a big, deodar tree for him. They try oxen, horses, elephants to bring a big deodar tree from the forest, but all in vain. They are not able to get that deodar tree because it's quite big. These deodar trees, they grow to, some 100 feet sometimes. So a big tree near the city is chosen. There's a big deodar tree near the city, near the place where the king rules. So they go there, and about that tree, there is a story about that tree, that in that particular tree, a tree goddess lives. A tree goddess lives there for hundreds of years, right? Now these soldiers and the vizier from the king's palace, they go there, and they warn the tree goddess to leave within 7 days. They gave her a warning that they will cut this tree down. And I quote the lines from the text of the short story: "With cruel axe we have come to fell your age-long home." So they say that they are here. They will come here after 7 days with an axe, and they will, cut that tree, that deodar tree. Now what happens? The tree goddess gets sad. So during the night when the king was sleeping, that tree goddess comes into his dream, and she requests the king not to cut the deodar tree. She talks about the various benefits which we people get from the trees. She talks about the birds who build their nests in the tree. She talks about the shade which we human beings and animals get from the trees. She says that men come and rest under it. The roots of the trees bind the earth. She urges the king that the children of that area come and play under it. But the king is adamant. He is not ready to change his mind. He says that she has to leave that tree because he has made up his mind to cut the tree in all cases. Now, when the goddess, this is a dream, right? When the goddess feels that the king won't budge, he will cut that deodar tree in any case. She says, she requests that the tree should be cut in three parts. The king, he gets astonished that what kind of request is this? Because if somebody somebody you cut somebody, if you cut him or an animal or somebody once, it means that he will get pain just a single time, right? Just once. But here this goddess says that the tree should be cut in three parts. The reason behind it is because she feels that if the tree is cut in one go, it will fell down. It's a big tree, and the smaller trees around, they will get under that, and they will perish. So this point opens our king's eyes, and he changes his mind because he thinks that even in the death, this goddess, this tree, they do not want other smaller trees to perish, right? So the king changes his mind and decides to use stones instead. So he decides not to cut that tree, and when he builds his new palace in stones, he he constructs a park around that palace which was full of trees, and people used to come and sit there. So here ends the story. This is the story. I hope the themes of the story are clear, but still let us discuss a few themes. What we get from the story is what we call the theme, right? The first important theme of the story is human greed. We human beings have become greedy to the extent that we don't think about the environmental degradation. We don't think about the disturbances in the ecosystem which we people create. I mean, this king symbolizes all of us. We all build houses. We just get selfish to the extent that we destroy nature. Some 10-15 years ago, you could see that the forest area, in our Doda, in our Kishtwar, in our Jammu and Kashmir, there was a huge forest area. Even the place where I live, I have a mountain. There is a mountain in front of me, this Paryot and Kleni area. When I was a young kid, when I was a school going kid in late 90s, this forest area was, there was a huge forest, a huge patch of forest. But during the last 10-15 years, encroachment was done, the trees got cut down, and I can see that this village has, they have prospered. The number of the houses has increased, and this is the story everywhere now, right? We have become greedy to the extent that we don't think twice before cutting the trees, right? So we should think about it. Another very important theme of the story is the benefits of the trees, like enumerated by the tree goddess in the story. We have so many benefits, and you people are all mature enough to understand those benefits. We get fresh air, we get oxygen, the roots bind the earth, soil erosion is prevented by trees, the shade of the trees is very important. The small animals, birds, they build their nest in the trees. If we have fruit trees around, we get fruits, we get leaves for the animals, fodder for the animals, we get fruits, we get Even if a tree dies its own death, the wood of the tree can be used as timber, as fuel, right? So these are some of the benefits of the trees. And the lesson from the story is that we should plant trees and we should take care of the trees. Here, I will urge you not to plant 10, 15, 20 trees per year. Just plant one tree per year, but take care of that plant. Take care of that plant, assure it that this plant grows, and fence it, water it, so that it will grow up. We have an example here. If you come to Doda and there is a place Gut, you know we had our esteemed ex-principal from Government Degree College Doda, Professor Zahir Abbas Hashmi. He is, I am really inspired, I am really impressed the way he has taken up this initiative. If you drive from Doda to Ghat, you will see plenty of chinar trees on the roadside. Chinar tree has a life of 3, 4, 500 years. So he has planted those trees. He planted those trees. He took care of those trees. He watered them, and now those chinar trees have grown big enough. And people go and sit under the shades of those chinar trees, and they give lots of good wishes and prayers. They pray for that person. Professor Zahir Abbas Hashmi, he was principal higher education in a college, and then controller of examination, Cluster University, Jammu. He resides in Ghat. You can get this news, get this information confirmed from anyone. And he has planted trees at many places across the state. Even in Degree College Doda, the plants, the number of trees, so the credit goes to that person. Although there are other people as well who worked hard to get those trees and to grow them, to plant them, to water them, but he is the one who took the initiative. Along with, before him, there was another principal, Professor S.K. Balla. So he took the initiative of planting trees at Government Degree College Doda. So I urge you people that if there are trees around you, just take care of them. And if you feel that you should do something in this lockdown, and if you feel that you should do something for this humanity, plant a tree, water it, take care of it until it it grows up, and then plant a next new tree, right? It's not important that you will plant those trees in your own patch of land. Plant them anywhere and don't claim the ownership, right? Because what, like we say that this planting trees is sadqa jariya. Even if a human being dies, after that, the this is a virtue which will be counted for forever, till the tree is there on this earth. So this was all about the short story. I hope that I was clear enough. Thank you.